All right, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining us again for another episode of Just Shilling. We have a fantastic guest today, and I am super excited to introduce you to her. But before we get into that, wanted just to cover some ground rules here, folks. This is a safe space. We will not be discussing anything that is related to financial advice. The opinions that are shared are of my own and of the fabulous guests, do not necessarily, represent the organization that we work for, respectively. And last but not least, we're adults here. We're open for a fun, engaging conversation. But if it's anything that's probably a little bit too spicy for a family dinner during the holidays, we are going to park that there and not bring it into this room for the lovely vibe that we are trying to create. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Maryam to the show today. How's it going, Maryam?
Hi, Trevor. Doing well. Happy Friday to everyone listening.
Yes, happy Friday indeed. So, before we get into this, let's just bring folks up to speed into who you are. Let's give a 30-second minute elevator pitch. And where are you joining us from today, Miriam?
I am joining today from San Francisco, out in California.
Ooh, San Francisco. You're probably a little bit warmer than we are here in Boston today. I am very cold, so I am jealous of you, my
Oh,
friend.
yeah. No snow here. No snow here.
Yes, awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. Yeah, give us an introduction. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I would love to. So my name is Maryam. In my current role, I'm head of strategy and operations at Euler Labs. Euler is a UK-based blockchain company. We have a lending protocol on Ethereum that we launched September of this year. And my background is kind of been just really always around the intersection of finance and technology. I started my career as a portfolio manager at a traditional finance equity fund. Did that for a couple of years. Really understood the role of technology there, and how it is it when it comes to financial innovation. Led me to kind of get into a product role there, building out software, and then moved on over to a fintech, building out investment software there by the name of Ridgeline. And I kind of was, I think, the second or third product manager there, building out the software. Took the company live. It grew quite a bit around the pandemic, from 50 people when I joined to about 300 in size.
Hmm.
Uh, and then kind of was looking for a bit of a different type of adventure. Always had my eye on crypto and blockchain from the early days of when I was a trader. And then decided, you know what, let's get in. And so I found Euler. I've been here about 2 years now. Tunish feels like a decade. Definitely different time, a feeling of time when it comes to Web3. But yeah, happy to be here.
Yes, fantastic, and I'm happy to have you. So, let's just give folks a little bit of context before we bring it to the present day and talk about your fabulous career to date so far. What was it like the earlier days when you were just becoming fascinated in crypto as a trader? What was that like?
Oh gosh, feels like such a long time ago. So I've pretty much been in San Francisco for a lot of my life, and I think that I mentioned that because it plays a big role in those days. It's, I kind of think of how right now everyone's talking about AI constantly. In San Francisco, you can't like go to a coffee shop without hearing someone speak about AI. That's kind of how it was around that era, where it was just this kind of new, exciting technology. Everybody was excited and talking about it. So I think maybe just where I was living really also influenced my interest in it. But I think everyone, like everyone else during that time, it was a bit more from the investment, like an actual crypto being kind of an asset that you can get in and invest in perspective, that we were all looking at it through. And I think the blockchain technology side wasn't as probably well known or understood back then. So it was a bit different than where we are now, because I think it was a little bit more purely like investing in a cryptocurrency when it first came out.
Yeah. things have definitely changed, but some things do remain the same, and we'll revisit that during the conversation. So, I'd like to start off with this, and we had a great conversation before to kind of prep for this, but what was that key moment that made you take the leap from, TradFi to DeFi, given your initial hesitation?
Yeah, I don't think it wasn't the hesitation, just to be clear, was a bit more, I think, around waiting for the industry to mature
Ah,
a bit. I feel like it was a new technology, and everybody was kind of seeing and waiting to see how it would mature. But what made me finally make the jump, I think, was just feeling that DeFi had finally taken off a bit. And in the early days, there wasn't DeFi, right? And so there wasn't, it kind of just trying to find a home in crypto. You're like, where do I start? What do I do? And from coming from a financial background, I think it was a lot clearer. The path started becoming more and more clear as DeFi started emerging as kind of a vertical within Web3, and more innovations within DeFi in terms of like lending protocols and DEXs, and kind of really seeing the type of companies that were coming out allowed, I think, me to understand where I could find my home within Web3 and help contribute and build the ecosystem.
and how did you kind of keep moving forward during those times where a majority of the world probably felt like they didn't really understand the space or fully understand the capabilities, or there's a lot of doubt around the space? How did you continue to keep going?
Yeah, I think a lot. You have to learn how to drown out kind of the noise and find a few people that you find really respectful, like you respect them, and they're people, you thought leaders in the space that you can rely on to get proper news from. And actually, there are, they're always a little bit more quiet, but it's not the people that are the loudest in the room. But there are people in the Web3 blockchain ecosystem that are just very thoughtful leaders that publish a lot of great content, and give, a bit of a deeper dive into the technology itself versus like the casino industry bit of it that I think most people need to like swim through and get through to get to the good content.
Yeah.
Um, and so if you're paying attention to that, you kind of start seeing like how serious this technology is and how much potential it has. So I think the belief in that always kind of helped me, um, like stage, like never lose faith when it comes to the blockchain technology itself. I think our industry as a whole has had an interesting journey, and I think all of us hopes and wishes that it would have taken off sooner and faster, but it's been a little slower than I think we all would want, but it's getting there.
Yeah, typically in our industry, sometimes it can feel like very slow, and then a lot happens very fast. So, let's go back in history here and talk a little bit more about some of the earlier days working at Euler, and maybe just some of the trials and tribulations that you were able to overcome, and some lessons learned that can maybe be shared with people that are interested into getting into this industry, and someone that may need to truly capture the importance of perseverance.
Yeah. So I joined Euler at an interesting time. It was, I think, December. I think officially I started in December 2022, but I signed my offer letter and earlier in the fall, like early October or something. And I think I was like a week after I signed my offer letter, like FTX exploded, and my the COO, my hiring manager, he called me and he was like, "Are you sure you want to? You're fine, right? You don't have any second thoughts?" And I was like, "Nope, sign me up. Let's go for it." And so that happens, and then 3 months later, our protocol I was working at got exploited. There was like the USDC depeg. There was just so many crazy events happening back to back in those first few months that I joined Web3. That within itself, I think, required a lot of like just doubling down, and kind of my conviction of blockchain technology and its potential in the future of DeFi. because there's a lot to weather. There's a lot to go through in Web3. I think there's a lot of jokes of how and why Web3 feels so much more intense. Like just a couple months in Web3 feels like many, like a year in normal years, I guess. Because you're just kind of going there's you always have a plan and then you get punched in the face.
Yeah.
That's kind of what Web3 feels like sometimes. So I think resilience and just kind of having belief and conviction really helps get you through those moments. Um, and in terms of anyone who's looking to join Web3, I think my advice to them and kind of how I went about it is to, like, VCs do a lot of due diligence on their companies, and they write the checks. And so, if a VC is comfortable writing a check, and a VC you highly respect is writing a check to a company after doing a great deal of due diligence, then I think it's a good place to start for any individual looking to like build their career in Web3. Like it's a good kind of path to follow. And that's kind of what I did. I got introduced to a recruiter at Paradigm that backs Euler, and then got introduced to Euler and kind of found the company that made the most sense for me, because it's, I think, pretty hard to get into Web3, and it can be intimidating when you don't know where to look or how to narrow down the filter. And so that helped me for sure. I also was a bit specific that I wanted to get into DeFi because of my background. So all those kind of things were a part of my considerations.
I like that. There's a quote. I was looking into some of the things that you had posted online, and one of the quotes, it's a Rocky Balboa quote, actually. And it's not
Yep.
about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward, and how much you can take and keep moving forward as well, too. So I think that that's very poignant to, what we were talking about here. So let's just bring it a little bit more to the present day, right? So someone that's worked in TradFi, you've worked in fintech, and you're now in DeFi. So
Mhm.
how do you see the evolution of these industries kind of coming along? And then the second part of that is, what's maybe one or maybe even another lesson from each that you've applied in kind of your methodology to working in DeFi?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I love this question because it's one that I wish like they were all one category. They should be like it should TradFi, fintech, DeFi. The fact that they exist as these separate categories is a part of the problem, because they're all trying to like solve for the same problems and the same kind of use cases, but just with different stages of technology and different types of technology. And when it comes to TradFi, I think I'm excited to see the established larger institutions like BlackRock and JP Morgan, and like starting to actually get into Web3 more, and through RWAs and tokenization. I think finally it's getting recognition that it like blockchain will really aid the next financial revolution.
Yeah.
And you start seeing articles from non-crypto native sources saying this, and that's really exciting. And then, like, for my journey in particular, that's the TradFi bit, but fintech is its own kind of little spotlight I like to shed a light on, because I actually would have hoped that fintech would be a bit quicker to pick up and integrate with DeFi, and since they're so both kind of even more on the forefront of financial innovation, right? And you're seeing this happen slowly, like with Stripe's acquisition of Bridge, and kind of what they're trying to do with stable coins and payments. You're starting to see it, but one thing that was very clear to me as I moved from fintech to DeFi was actually how disparate still the two kind of sub areas of financial technology is going. Like they don't. I feel like the fintech and DeFi worlds just need to talk more to each other, and kind of collaborate to co-create solutions together. Because even in the role that I was in as a product manager at Ridgeline, we were building out reporting software at some point, um, and you were querying a ledger. It's double entry accounting, right? You're querying a ledger with debits and credits to roll it up through kind of queries and get a result that is like your unrealized gain loss report or whatever like financial report you're looking at.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, like what is blockchain? It's a ledger. It's debits and credits, right? So I remember sitting in my role, also like being really in tune with blockchain at Ridgeline. I was like, why are we not using like an immutable ledger, which is blockchain, which is essentially a database, to write these reports? And you start noticing how there's, fintech is ripe with opportunities to adopt blockchain and use the technology, but it's not sadly happening. I think I was watching a product demo from Plaid not too long ago, and they were talking a lot about the lending space, like just the innovations to kind of financial lending, like what you can do with lending.
Yeah.
And sitting here working for a DeFi company that's in lending, you're wondering like, wow, there's like zero mention of blockchain, like not one kind of, like, oh, we have like an R&D team or something. So, I mean, at least I didn't hear about it. So it's a shame to kind of see like a missed opportunity there. But the kind of Stripe acquisition of Bridge and some other activity you're seeing with PayPal and such, you're starting to get, it's more exciting that maybe the worlds are starting to merge a bit.
Hopefully, and it is a shame there is that reluctancy, but there may be kind of some external reasons for that. I know that we're still trying to kind of work out this regulatory clarity, and we will definitely be paying close attention to how things evolve over the next year or so. But looking at the innovation happening in DeFi today, you just mentioned that, right? There's just some really interesting lending capabilities. Uh, what are some things that excite you the most about where we're headed?
Yeah, I mean, I think they really revolve or kind of don't want to use the word center because I'm trying to talk about centralization not being good, but centers around like, like autonomy and transparency and accessibility, all these things that I think blockchain solves for when it comes to finance. Like right now, the way that things are headed, if blockchain was not adopted, we kind of stick to our systems of centralization when it comes to these financial institutions, it remains to be less equitable, less diverse, just not really great for the world or kind of the global world that we live in. And so I'm excited about the the kind of just the how many more people can have access to finance, like a financial education, and just feel like they're a part of the the scary Wall Street, New York kind of thing that is intimidates and scares so many people. It is no longer so scary, and anybody can access it. Specifically with lending, what excites me is for so long, credit scores are a good measure, I guess, of your ability to pay back a loan or being able to get financing. But it's also very crippling for many people and hold a lot of people back. And there's various reasons why a credit score gets kind of messed with or whatever, or just even broadening it outside of the credit score. Like if someone goes to the bank to get a loan, for whatever reason, there's historically been racism involved and
Mm,
kind of classism, and there's so many things that are kind of these soft measures of trying to figure out if someone is worthy of paying a loan back. And the beauty with decentralized finance and decentralized lending, like Euler, is that you don't all the smart contract does that trust bit for you, right? If you want to loan something out and you're worried that you're not going to get paid back, or from the other perspective, if you want to make sure that you're able to loan, you can actually borrow some money, that the smart contract goes, okay, well, you don't have to actually directly trust each other because it's over collateralized lending. And if the person defaults and hits like a certain trigger where the kind of doesn't look like they're worthy of paying the loan back, then there's an automatic liquidation. And that allows people to really be anybody like to, when you want, like, you don't actually have to fit a certain box. You're just basically, you have money, you want to lend it out, you get to lend it out. You want to borrow some money, you can borrow some money. It's not as prohibitive as kind of the existing system that we have, because the trust factor is kind of abstracted into smart contracts. Okay, so where were we?
Yeah, so talking about like that, the immutable nature of smart contracts, there's strength and weaknesses to it depending on who you are. So, do you think that this capability is really forcing people not only in DeFi but in other industries to kind of rethink some of the potentials of that, or do you even see any kind of unexpected challenges that would come with something purely or a decision purely being made on a smart contract and leaving it, purely to something there's no human element?
Yeah. Yeah, great question. I mean, I think it really just, the thing to discuss here is security,
Mm,
securing the code, making sure that there's like the trust is actually able to be abstracted and put into code. It really highlights the role of being able to do enough security audits before you actually go into production, because the one kind of drawback of code that's so autonomous is that it is kind of, self-executing, and that it can be manipulated, or that it's kind of such a efficient and fast process that the stop kind of gaps are less, right?
yeah.
I think a lot of the kind of security instance exploits that happen in the traditional financial system kind of end up getting caught a little quicker, maybe because actually the inefficiencies, and kind of the middlemen or women and all the people you have slow down the process, and so there's more stopgap areas to catch kind of a security exploit. But when it comes to smart contracts and decentralized finance, it's that efficiency comes with a cost, because there's less. It's so fast that there's less opportunity to catch when something goes wrong.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to probably have to start thinking about how AI is going to come into this. I mean, have you all started thinking about that or incorporating that? I know that that's, as you mentioned earlier, everyone's talking about that. But being more focused on DeFi organization, are you all starting to kind of think about that or have conversations about how that could potentially impact your business?
Yeah, I think AI definitely. This is my personal opinion. Is AI needs blockchain more than blockchain needs AI.
Hmm.
Because when it comes to a lot of the verifiability and the transparency that's going to be needed around AI and data, like, really blockchain is the most well suited technology to solve a lot of those issues that's going to show up there. But in terms of kind of how AI is, I guess, been affecting our kind of company, it's a bit more maybe on the individual level, where, as do you, I'm sure, Trevor, but we all use kind of, AI to supplement our jobs. I think it's kind of smart of anyone to do that, and people should be trained into knowing how to use AI, whether it's coding or whether it's needing to write up some doc or whatever. Like, I think that the better that we as individuals, and I think everyone at our company does this, is using AI to kind of supplement their jobs, the sharper we are and the more empowered we are.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was listening to something that there's going to be a lot of unicorn companies that are going to come to fruition because of the use of this technology. And, it's going to be really lean teams and people that are, in a four-person team can create a unicorn company. So super psyched about that. But as you mentioned before, there has to be a balance. And respect of the technology as well too. So I want to kind of shift gears a bit. We are at the halfway mark, and wow, this conversation is smoothly running along. So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to join in and join into the conversation, contribute to it, or ask a question to Maryam, as long as you want to keep it on track to what we're talking about here, and there are no gotcha questions, we're all about that. But one of the things that I wanted to share with the audience is just to get an understanding more so of your team. And I know that something that was really important for you in being able to kind of weather the storm of the bear market and all the other things that you were talking about earlier that you were able to successfully overcome as an organization. Talk to me about the importance of your team and having a team that is there to support you.
Yeah, I love this question. I think in my whole career, I've really overweighted and really um, no, like I pay close attention to culture. It's like my top kind of thing when it comes to picking where you kind of want to, spend your days and build and what company you want to join. The culture at Euler is so unique for me because it's Web3 as a whole. Still, I think this is a criticism for all of us, but like has a little bit of maturing to do. And it's sometimes hard to find the adults in the room and kind of the really serious builders that also can just make fun of themselves and not take themselves too seriously, but are very brilliant. And I think that's the group that makes up Euler, just like a lot of smart people to learn from that don't have the kind of ego bit, and are just really wanting decentralized finance to take off or lending to take off, and isn't it in it for like a quick win. So I think that culture really spoke to me, and just being able to, when the going gets tough, like it's really the people that make it all better. So that's kind of what I chose and where I wanted to focus on.
People matter, and this
Yep.
is even shifting gears a little bit more because there are people that listen to this podcast and the recording that we'll have up of the full conversation later on that are looking to get into the space, or they're new to the space, or they're curious about the space. And sometimes even though it is a very welcoming space, I think that we can do a better job at being even a little bit more inclusive. So what do you think are some things that can be done, maybe more on the individual level to make this space a bit more welcoming, respectful, maybe even emotionally intelligent, especially kind of in the interaction that we have with newcomers? And how do you see things kind of evolving over time as this industry does mature?
Yeah, I mean, uh, you know, all industries and across the board, I think we just, we're all trying to get better when it comes to inclusivity and diversity and such. But I think in Web3 in particular, it's funny. It's kind of like a irony. It's both very welcoming and inclusive, but at the same time, I think the group that makes up the community of Web3 is very much, you know, is less diverse. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity, and there's a lot of people who are welcoming to the idea of more people coming into Web3. But it's just, unfortunately, I'm still waiting to see the crowd. I'm waiting for the crowd to become more diverse. It seems like it is a very dev heavy environment, Web3, which is great. It's a building space, and the devs are laying down the frameworks and the train tracks to like really get crypto going. And I think the areas that we kind of need to grow in Web3 and the other type of roles when it comes to marketing and business development and team operations and just things that are not specifically coding, I think we're light on, and that diversity of thought also needs to be brought in to allow crypto to kind of take off and to the next kind of stage and what it needs to do to kind of become a household trusted technology. So that, like, that you can't going to pro going and getting true product market fit. There's a lot of branding and trust and things that go into it. So I think from both kind of just like the kind of diversity of people, but diversity of thought is kind of what we really need. And it comes from people, right? You have diverse people with diverse backgrounds that give that diversity of thought.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think that, and for maybe people that aren't in the space, but once you get in, you will find this that there are individuals that are very passionate, like they are in love with what they do, and they can be sometimes get siloed in their vision. And there's obviously crypto communities can sometimes be a little bit divided, right? We have Bitcoin maxis, and then it's kind of like Bitcoin maxis versus everyone else, are the pure altcoin advocates. So how do you kind of think that these echo chambers shape the industry's progress? And do you think that there's anything that can be done to kind of bridge these divides?
Yeah. I mean, it's just that, right? Trevor, it's an echo chamber. And whenever you have an echo chamber of any kind, it's not good. Like whatever the topic, the area, the industry, etc. Because focus is good, but it isolates you from being able to see the bigger picture
Yeah.
um, at times. And I think that's what this kind of echo chamber does. People are at some time. I think you said this. You're like, we get in this world of just a bit of news comes up, and then I think there's like hundreds and hundreds of posts of people just like rehashing the same news and
Yeah.
providing their perspective, and it's like, my gosh, you can never get like through your feed without like going through the same exact topic for like a little bit. So it's a bit of it's a true echo chamber in that sense. And I think if we have a bit more women in the space, a bit more just kind of diverse backgrounds, roles, etc., you start seeing different voices come in with different perspectives that might say, "Hey, like let's not look over here so much. Let's look over here. Have you guys, thought about this?" Or just an alternative perspective. It's all about building perspective and having various perspectives and not being kind of myopic about anything. And I think that builds a well-rounded industry.
Yes, and sure. And we do have a longtime supporter of the podcast here, and Dorothy. So I'm going to bring her up to ask a question. But one other note that I wanted just to kind of touch up on, we were talking about smart contracts, and even when it comes to the diversity of developers, right? Like the code is only as good as the person who built it. So maybe that's something that we can revisit for another time, and we'll definitely come back to that topic of being a woman in crypto. But before we go there, I'd like to welcome Dorothy, who's been patiently waiting. How's it going, Dorothy?
Oh, I'm good. How are you guys?
Fantastic. What's your question for us today?
I have a question for Marvin. Maryam. I hope I pronounced that name correctly. Actually, the lending protocol in Ethereum. Um, now, Avi is a leader in Ethereum. My question is, now it's very competitive in DeFi, even though in lending protocol. And then what is the company strategy, your company strategy to make you win in this bull run? And then second, go back to the smart contract. I've been in the space for quite a while too. I witnessed some of the drainage of the DeFi liquidity. So with the smart contracts part, what do you do? Or do you have any measures in case the crypto crash, the bear market come again? Um, any precaution that protect the liquidity from drainage in your protocol? And then I have one more question after you answer this too.
Uh, so I'll go ahead and answer the kind of first question you stated, which is around the strategy that Euler has that differentiates it from Aave, which is a leading lending protocol in the space. The real main difference, I would say, kind of comes down to this move in the lending space towards composability. The way that Euler is built is basically you can kind of think of it as Legos and building blocks. We have our own, it's called the EVC or Ethereum Vault Connector, which connects vaults and kind of really provides the logic when it comes to a lending protocol. And so we actually encourage, and that's a public, it's open source and public. And so for anyone who wants to build a lending protocol, they actually don't have to start from scratch. They can go ahead and use the EVC and save themselves a lot of time. They can actually build out their own entire interface and build their own lending protocol on top of the EVC. So that's a major kind of innovation that is out there that we put up first. And then we launched our own protocol or is our own UI on top of the EVC that we built in September this year. And the composability of being able to create any vault that you want is really the main differentiator between Aave. If you would like to, it kind of caters to all the risk reward um, kind of appetites that are out there. So if you want to create a vault and accept a certain set of tokens as collateral, that you can define it yourself, the pricing oracle that you want to use to price those tokens. You can choose which oracle, whether it's like Chronicle or Pith or various ones that we have as options. So it's really the customizability and the being able to cater to all risk reward appetites that sets Euler apart. Just kind of contrasting it, the way that Aave works is right now you cannot create a vault on it. There's a bit more restrictive in that sense and a bit more on the safe, a kind of conservative risk profile. Things go through the DAO more, and it's a bit more opinionated than Euler.
Oh, thank you very much. I learned something new today. This is the first time I heard of the EVS. Is it called EVS or EVZ?
Oh, sorry. It's the Euler Vault Kit. So
Okay.
EVK.
Oh, EVK. Thank you very much. I learned something great today.
Yeah, no
And
worries.
then my second question is, do you think there are some protocols now don't allow U.S. citizens to use it because of the SEC? So do you think the SEC will regulate DeFi also? What's your opinion on it?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are optimistic. My own political thoughts aside, because I just won't include them here. But a lot of people are optimistic about the results of the election and how pro crypto it is going to be. So I think that it's a kind of collective exhale from the industry. They're already saying that Gary Gensler is going to be on his way out.
Yeah, I heard
Um,
rumors of that too.
yeah. So there's a lot of kind of I think changes that are going to come that are hopefully pro crypto. That's been promised, and for that reason, I think we'll start seeing a bit less restrictive front ends and kind of not geo blocking people as much. But unfortunately, in the current year that we're in, especially with Gary Gensler's kind of going after um, companies a bit, even like in a predatory way, that didn't really left people being conservative and wanting to protect themselves to make sure that they don't get caught up in regulation.
Yeah, and we'll definitely see, but with everything comes a cost, right? For sure. So thank you so much, Dorothy, for that very poignant question there. And thank you very much, Miriam, for explaining that. So maybe a couple more questions here because of time sake here. I wanted just to revisit this topic about, being a woman in crypto, and there are different organizations that are focused around that. There's a point where I wish that, it didn't have to kind of be divided like this, but I think that, we are still kind of far away from true equality, right? So, what are
Mm.
some of the unique challenges that you've faced compared to other industries, and how do you see the space evolving in terms of inclusivity or opportunities for these kind of underrepresented groups? And not only the things that maybe we could work on more, but maybe even highlighting some of the positives as well.
Yeah. I mean, in the end of the day, I kind of go back to like even broadening it, not just to women, but like diverse backgrounds, diverse people bring diversity of thought, and that affects the P&L. That helps everyone. You never want to have an echo chamber, and so I'll just start with that. But then specifically double clicking onto women in Web3, it is not it it's not for the faint of heart. Like, it's not the easiest thing. Unfortunately, the industry is very male heavy, but it's there. I think I'm optimistic that it'll improve. What I would hope to see is more women coming into the industry, and I think it women are I think there's studies about this, and it's actually why women outperform when it comes to like investing, but women tend to be a bit risk averse. Um, and I think cautious and kind of watches a space and or prepares a bit more, and as opposed to kind of maybe more the male tendency of just like diving head in and going for it. You see this in like little kids too, right? It starts early. I don't know where we get it from, but there is this like kind of risk averse approach that women have, and I think you should actually look it up. I encourage everyone to look it up. There's like a bunch of papers done, and this is actually in TradFi why a lot of women outperform when it comes to investing. So it is
Love
kind of
it,
like
love it.
yeah, it's a great quality because it allows you to really do your due diligence and kind of think twice before you get in. And I think that's maybe a lot of when I hear at least my female friends wanting to get into crypto, it's a bit like hesitant because of that. Just because it's like, well, I don't know, it's crazy. We can learn a lot from men here. Like men are really brave in it sometimes. They're just like, okay, whatever, I'll figure the rest out. I'm going in. And so I think the female and male brain work a bit differently for good reason. And that when it comes to like really building a company and an organization and executing on a goal, it's nice to have both sides of the brain, like both those kind of perspectives. And I think women can learn from men and men can learn from women. I'm not a fan of like a full on like all women company and all that. I think there's really a lot of value and beauty in having kind of the kind of both the brains and a true collaboration.
Yeah, and you can even see that in your organization, so kudos to you all as well. Last question here, and we'll kind of shift gears here to talking about some more interesting things that folks might not know about you, and then end it here on a fun note. But how do you balance your personal views with broader trends in crypto, and where do you kind of draw the line between staying true to your beliefs and then somewhat having to follow the market momentum?
Um, yeah, I think I'll answer this one kind of in terms of just even projects I follow or kind of the areas of crypto that I'm interested in. Like
Yeah.
I think it's easy to get a lot, especially with like bull market, upon us kind of thing. I don't know if it's officially been called, but um,
It's
there's
something's going on.
something's happening. I don't know, baby bull. It's like growing up. Uh,
A
but
calf market, who knows?
the calf market or something. I don't know. But there's, a tendency to there's a lot of distractions. There's a
Yeah.
lot of, and they're going to grow in the amount of distractions, the like casino part of it all and the like, investing in the latest shit coin and whatever. But, it's kind of sad. Like I'm excited and kind of scared about the bull market, to be honest,
Yeah.
because I feel like I joined when it was bear, like in 2022 winter. It was like crypto winter too, and it's like I think almost like a bit easier to build and stay focused when it's bear, right?
Yes,
And then
yes.
when it becomes bull, it's just like chaos. And I don't know, it kind of also hurts, I think, some of the industry image a bit further because, you know, shit coins are shit coins. They're like they're not going to act, and they're the ones that are like tip of the spear when it comes to PR and people hearing about like, quick get rich schemes and stuff. And it doesn't help the PR of the industry. And I'm kind of a little bit concerned for that.
Yeah.
But hopefully this bull run will be different. But I try to stay true to like not trying to. I don't try to participate in that side as much as like it gets kind of attractive here and there sometimes. I try not to be too much of a like advocate for just like no value creation.
Yeah,
Uh,
you got to protect your prana, right? And focus on the things that resonate with you for sure. I mean, it's interesting because, there are people that have started asking me about crypto. I've been trying to talk to them about years of advocating for quote unquote, the projects, the people that are trying to build the right way, that are actually, doing something that brings value. And a majority of the people that reached out to me, it's like, hey, I bought Dogecoin. What can I do? It went down. Like, what do I do now? I'm like, you gotta learn this, friend. Like,
today I think the new shit coin is peanut. I think right. That was the one that everybody kept talking about. Like I
yeah,
was just like,
it's
you
gone up.
hear the
It's gone up thousands of percent. It's interesting. There was something I was telling my friend this the other day. It was and I forget which one it was. It might have been WIF, but I think WIF has a bigger market cap than Hedera
oh my
or
gosh.
Stellar. And I was just like, wow, what a time to be alive. But to each their own, if you will. So
Yeah.
I wanted to end it this way. Kind of looking back at your journey so far, what's one achievement that really makes you smile? And is there kind of a moment where you just really are happy and prideful about what you've been able to accomplish, perhaps?
Yeah, I think I would say I like that I stayed true to myself when it comes to kind of chasing the technology in finance. And even when it felt a bit not like the obvious thing to do, leaving a stable fintech job to jump into a Web3 startup, building in DeFi. Um, it's something that I stayed true to and kind of took the risk, and I'm so happy I did because it's kind of hard to go back once you're in Web3 and DeFi and this kind of crazy wild world. It's hard to go back. You're like, well, you feel like you've kind of stepped into the future a bit, and then stepping back, or if you like go back to Web 2 or something, I feel like it feels odd.
So I'm guessing that you're never going back to Web 2.
I mean, it would be very difficult because it's like this world that doesn't speak the language you know what I mean? It's like once you start getting into this, it's a little like, I don't know, are we culty? Like,
Maybe, maybe there's a bit of an aspect of that. And, kind of talking a little bit about that, and I'll wrap it up with this, but, you know, uh, adding on to what you were speaking of, what's probably the biggest misconception that people have about Web3 um, that's kind of evolved for you personally since you've moved from Web 2 to Web 3?
yeah. Um, I think this goes back to Trevor. We spoke about this not too long ago, but just like the question of is crypto still a thing is so
Hmm.
fascinating to me. This was like probably I was thinking about this like a couple weeks ago, so it's a bit different now since the election and the bull
Yeah.
runs kicked off. I think people are answering yes, it's still a thing, and or that answer is being given to them through the good market activity. But for a long while, I think I sit in this kind of middle thing. Not I don't know. Like my network's made up of a lot of like non-crypto people too, and like people are like traditional finance or still in the kind of the fintech Web 2 space, and then there's like the people who are entirely in it in the crypto space. And it's just so funny because who you ask this question to really like is telling the response. The crypto people that are in the space like me and you, it's like, oh yeah, it's definitely a thing. Like it never, it's here, it's growing, it's thriving. But then if you ask individuals that are a little further away from it, probably not even in finance, right? They're like, oh, right. I think there's some coins still out there and maybe they get traded on and like, okay, like, but is it really even taking off? Is that technology even going anywhere?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of misconceptions still of like the legitimacy of crypto.
Yeah.
And saw that reflected in Washington, right? Like this past year when it comes to like policymakers and the SEC and just kind of squashing and stifling the technology. There's reasons for it. There are bad actors and instances where it spooked people, but I think that misconception is unfortunately still one that exists.
Hmm.
Uh, because really the technology itself that doesn't get enough light is pretty robust and innovative. And hopefully people can look past the kind of casino industry part of
Well,
it.
well, hey, it's all a part of it, for the good, bad, ugly, and indifferent, right? We're all here, and I'm glad that, we're having these kind of conversations. I really appreciate you being so authentic in an age where authenticity is, I don't know if I would say it's dying, but it's definitely becoming more rare. So I appreciate you and what
Oh,
you've been
thank
able
you.
to share with us today. I truly do, truly do. It's a special part being able to meet people such as yourself, Maryam. So, shifting gears to some kind of fun things, closing it out here because we are almost up on time. But, I wanted just to maybe talk to the audience and share some things that may not be common knowledge about you, and I know that you have a passion for music. So, can you tell us anything about that and what you're also involved with?
Yeah, I'd like to joke that, like, I was born to immigrant parents, and they're like, "Education is, like, everything, and you study the hard sciences and finance or doctor, lawyer, engineer." And so, like, my creative side, I think I was a little quiet on for a long time and pushed down, but it's starting to kinda come back up now, and for a little bit now, I've been learning how to DJ.
Nice, nice.
I've been saying it for years, and I almost feel like now it's like this trend, like people are just becoming DJs all the time with AI and stuff, and it's like, I don't know, a dying art in a way, but like I'm still committed to the chorus, and I'm like, I'm gonna learn. It just feels good to be a part of good vibes, you know? Like if I have a role in like my friends dancing and having a great time,
Yes.
and I kind of let them forget about their problems for a second and just let it go on the dance floor, like, hey, that's a win.
Are you a traditionalist when it comes to DJ? Are you like playing around with vinyl, or are you kind of doing more the MP3 type of thing or digital?
Not that traditional with vinyl, but, but a bit, traditional in the sense that there's certain, like, buttons on the console that are kind of big no-nos. Like, there's auto syncing, and there's certain things, like, you can either listen by ear and match BPM, or you can kind of, rely on, like, true skill versus, like, allowing a little bit of the software to do it for you. And that's where I think I'm saying like DJ is like a dying art. DJing is becoming a dying art
Yeah.
because it's hard not to just like press the auto sync button and be like, oh, okay, like
I did
you know.
something. I made it. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it'll be fun. I mean, I don't know if I'll ever do anything with it, but it's just kind of a fun hobby on the side.
I like that. I like that. Awesome. And in terms of kind of closing it out here with a lovely little segment that we like to do called Bearish or Bullish, wanted just to kind of throw some topics out there for you. So I know that you are a really big fan of going to different events. I know that you were at Permissionless recently. In terms of the way that traditional networking is done when it comes to these kind of conferences, are you bearish or bullish on those?
Hmm. It depends on the conference, really, right? Or the place, and like there's a lot of it that's out of your control, just kind of like the content and the people and all that. But when it comes to what's in your control, I think that you have to go to these conferences with an agenda of sorts, like a strategy of like who or kind of what area, what do you want to learn, who do you want to get in contact, what type of conversations you want to have. Because if you go in there and just kind of like are running around, like it's a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I think it's nice to have some sort of like general like strategy of like what you're looking for and what you're trying to get out of from the conference. And then keep that in mind as you kind of navigate the conferences and have conversations and stuff. And the more preparation I think you do in terms of just knowing who's going to be there and what, kind of doing a little bit of pre-networking before you even get to the event, I think it helps out as well. So, and it informs that kind of, okay, what's the strategy for how I tackle this conference? Because it can be so overwhelming, I think, if you just kind of are there to like, okay, go with the flow, like
Yeah.
because there's just so much content and so many people, and it's just like
Side
it's hard.
events and different parties. It's
Yeah. It's a lot, and it drains your social batteries, like, I kind of am in the middle of, like, extrovert, introvert, like, you need a minute to just, like, relax here and there, so I also encourage that, like, I don't know, I meditate, sometimes I'll just, like, be if I can fit in, like, a time to get back to the hotel room to meditate or just, like, to kinda recharge the battery,
yes.
just do that, and then, you're good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like you. I would consider myself kind of in the middle, maybe even leaning a little bit more to being an extrovert. But I remember my first conference was consensus, and whoa, like for someone that loves being around people. And fun fact is that like I used to tell my parents to bring me to the mall during Christmas time when I was a kid because that's I just loved people watching and I
Oh.
loved being around people. And then fast forward to being adults, like I thought that when I got to this event, I would love being surrounded by people nonstop, and you definitely need a break and a strategy for sure. So, thank you for sharing those words of wisdom. Another one, bearish or bullish, capital efficiency that is created by using blockchain technology. Are you bearish or bullish on that?
Oh my gosh, so bullish. Like that's it, right? Like that is that whole equitable nature, the whole the higher accessibility, like even like I think if I could just say like the what's one benefit of blockchain when it comes to finance, it would be that, right? It's capital efficiency and all its kind of definitions in terms of who has access to it and how efficient it is in being transacted and the speed and kind of all the whole spectrum.
Yep, I like that. And then lastly is one that's obviously probably going to impact your business, but the increased institutional adoption and or capital inflows. Are you bearish or bullish on the impact of what it's going to do for DeFi?
Again, like bullish and excited and all of the things. I think everyone's like been asking the question, like, is institutional coming and are they coming for so long when it comes to DeFi? And I think, without that collaboration, it doesn't take off. Like
Yeah.
you need so much of our like just monetary supply is like locked up in traditional finance that you can't have these like isolate when it comes back to like capital efficiency, right? How do you get capital efficiency? You need to have the entire circulation going through once we get TradFi on crypto rails, like that's kind of we've won, we've kind of course there's like some conflicting philosophies there. So there'll have to be like, you know, new companies and splits and whatnot. And I don't know how that's going to evolve, but in the end, I think it's net positive to have TradFi and DeFi merge.
You know what, Maryam, this has been an absolute honor and a pleasure. I think that, one of the things that we should leave here is, and hopefully everyone that joins these kind of conversations actually starts to incorporate this into the actionable item that you want to do and how you are impacting your community. But, really, I think that what we need to do is to continue to have more conversations like this of people with similar opinions, different opinions, and even kind of getting in the room all the degens and even like the people of the purists and the maxis and everyone having conversations like this so that we
Right.
can truly move things forward because whenever there's just one voice, it typically doesn't always work out in the best outcomes at the end. So, on that note, I will end it and thank you again for joining us and for everyone that has tuned in. I see Kristen, Totaling Arc here, has been here, Grayson, Dorothy, Antonio, Douglas, Azam, Alexander, SM, James, Marion. I know that there's some others here, but LinkedIn doesn't always show me who is actually in the room. But there are a million other places that you can be in the world, but you chose to be here and having this much needed conversation. And I appreciate all of you and sending you all good vibes going into the weekend. We will be back here Monday at noon for another episode of Just Shilling. And I look forward to seeing you all then. Take care, guys. Have a good weekend. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.